Hello, my name is Ginger, and I am the primary protector of the Mage System. So there is a common saying that you can't heal in the same environment that you got sick. And while I like this statement because it does highlight something that is partially true, I think it should be rephrased as, it is very hard to heal in the environment that you got sick. Or that you can only really heal partially in the environment that you got sick. Either one. I think the truth is that it is possible. But it's just going to be a lot easier if you go somewhere else and do that. But that's not possible for everyone. So I wanted to make this, and this isn't like a substitute for therapy or anything, you know. It's something you can do on top of therapy, or if you don't have access to therapy, you might be able to utilize some of these methods. I would watch this whole thing because everything I'm going to say in it is very important, and I really think you should hear it, especially towards the end. And at the end of this video, we're really going to talk about accepting the things you cannot change, changing the things you can change, and knowing the difference between those two things, and I really want you guys to stay tuned for that part. We are not currently in the environment that we got sick, however, we did a massive amount of healing while we were still there. We probably have had about 14 altars, and now we only have 4. Not that integration is the only path to healing, but it just goes to show how much healing we have done, a large portion of which was done in the environment that we got sick. So I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say that you might not be able to utilize all of these because I don't know everything about your situation. I don't know what your rules are if you share a room with somebody, or you know, the energy of everyone in your house, you know. I don't know everything about your situation, but if you can pick and choose what you think you would be able to use, that might be really beneficial for you. So the first thing I want to say is I want to introduce the concept to you that every person has a sort of force field around them of energy and space and placement that they take up. Now, I use the word energy hesitantly because this doesn't have to be a super woo-woo concept, you know. It's just pretty basic that every person has a bit of a bubble around them of space that they take up. Now, a lot of times, us as trauma survivors have a very weak force field, meaning that it is easily overtaken by others' energy, and we are easily influenced and contaminated by others' force fields. You can strengthen your force field. For example, if you have a really weak bubble and force field, and you go out somewhere, and somebody uses their force field to make a negative comment at you, it could completely overtake your force field with their force field. Rather than if you had a strong force field, you could be confident enough for that comment to not really get to you in the same way. Your force field is not only determined by how confident you are, but just how strong your energy as a person is, how much you are willing to protect yourself, how confident that you are who you say you are, and you deserve to be treated with respect. It is not only people who can have these force fields, but it's also rooms. And they can have different energies to them. Whenever you walk into a room, sometimes it feels very plain, and sometimes the energy of the room is very strong and protective. And again, not like energy, but you know, different things determine those factors, like what the room looks like, what it smells like, what that sound sounds like bouncing off the walls. Everything has sort of a force field around it, is all I'm trying to say. This is a concept that I will be using as a way to illustrate certain things to you throughout this video. And the first way I want to use it is in the space that you're staying in within your home. Whether you have your own room or you're sharing a room and you have your own space in it, you need to really, to the best of your ability, make this space somewhere that feels like home to you. Grounding objects are something that pretty much everyone has the ability to do, and you can do that for yourself. Grounding objects are essentially an object or thing that feels safe to you to look at, even if you're in a flashback or whatever. That object feels nice. There is nothing bad associated with that object, and it makes you feel warm and fuzzy inside. I'll give you some examples. This is a little pyramid salt lamp. Before it unplugged, could change colors, and that was really grounding. Also, it's really cold, so if you touch it with your hands, it feels really nice, and it looks really pretty. This is a little bastet. It's a little statue we have of this Egyptian cat goddess. And, you know, if you're having a rough time, you can just look over and be like, oh, hey, Bastet. And grounding objects don't just have to be things like this. They can be posters of a band you like, so that if you're having a rough time and you look over, you're automatically receiving a stimulus of something that you automatically enjoy and your brain automatically associates with pleasure. And grounding objects don't just have to be a few things scattered about your room. You can literally cover your room in things that make you happy inside. In fact, I think you should really aim to do that if you can. Cover your room in decor that makes you feel happy. If you have objects that make you feel at home, put them on your shelves, put them on your tables. Anything you can do like that. And of course, I don't know what your rules are on what you're allowed to have, but to the best of your ability, even if it's something very small, I would highly recommend that. Another thing is if your walls are still the same color that they were whenever the trauma took place, primarily, you can paint them if you're allowed to. Painting our walls is something we did while we were still in the home that we got sick, and it really made it feel like a different room. It didn't feel like the same room that we grew up in anymore. It felt like a fresh start. So I would highly, highly recommend painting your walls if you can do that. Or painting little quotes that make you grounded and happy, or certain symbols. Like me and Charlie really like onks. It's a symbol that makes us feel really nice, so we have like an onk painted on our wall. Another thing you can do with your space is organize it and decorate it so that it stimulates all 5 of your senses. Maybe not all 5 of them, but you know what I mean. Like, obviously we went over grounding objects for sight, but there's more than that. Like lights, like we have LED lights and mood lighting, like lamps and stuff. If you have harsh lighting, it really sucks when you're triggered and you go into your room and you're greeted with just this harsh lighting and you're like, ugh. But if you have like some comforting lamps and stuff scattered about, that feels really nice. As far as smells, candles are amazing. I love candles. They're immediately grounding, immediately makes me feel better. Smell diffusers, I love smell diffusers, especially if they're the kind that makes that little scattery water sound, because then that also stimulates the ears and makes you feel nice. Having music or classical music lightly playing in the background can make this really just feel like a space, you know what I mean, like your space. Kinesthetically, some things that are really nice is having a bunch of warm and fuzzy blankets and pillows everywhere, or heating pads. You need to get a heating pad. Those are amazing. Or like a heated blanket or something, because those automatically feel comforting and amazing. Get some books, get some comfort objects. Really make this place feel like a home. Go on Pinterest. Find rooms that look nice to you. Even if you have to really get crafty and be a little makeshift, go to the dollar store, go to the thrift store. If you need things that are cheap, if you have access to these things, really making your space feel comfortable and like a space that really reminds you of happy things. Also, you don't have to listen to this part. This is just my ginger woo-woo thing that I like, is getting incense and getting crystals and things like that. Something that has monumentally helped me, if you're willing to receive this witchy stuff, that's just kind of my thing, is getting some incense, some dragon's blood, some sage, some nag champa, especially. I love nag champa, and just taking the incense and cleansing your room with it really, really resets the place. Another thing that I did while we were still in the environment that we got sick is I took a clear quartz crystal and I cleansed it and I charged it with protection and I put it near the doorway so that the energy of the room was really strong and anybody that comes into the room is immediately kind of greeted with safe energy that kind of deters bad things. That's just a little thing you can add on if you're into things like that, but really you don't have to listen to me at all. That's just my weird thing. Now I'm going to start getting into talking about the inevitable leaving your room that you're going to have to do, because you have to pee at some point, you have to get food at some point. About your doorway, I would highly recommend, if you can, getting a lock on your door. Not necessarily for just immediate protection, but just for the fact that having a lock on your door and knowing that your door is locked, even if it's not going to really do much, it makes you feel a lot better, just psychologically safer knowing that that's on there. Even if you know nothing bad would potentially happen, it always just feels nice anyway. If you have a lock on your door, you might use it if you want, if you're allowed to, if you can, if that's not a bad idea. Again, accommodate everything I'm saying to your situation. Like if you can't or you're not allowed to, or you know something wouldn't be a good idea, don't do it. As far as food, now I would recommend, if you can, keeping some food and water in your room. Obviously nothing too perishable, but keeping stuff in there so if you are having one of those days where it's like, I just don't want to leave the room right now. Like, they're in there watching TV. I don't want them saying things to me. You can have this emergency little snack stash in your room, and that's really lovely. Getting some water in there too is wonderful, if you're allowed those things, of course. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is we're really getting into the healing modalities here. Is you're going to have to leave your room at some point. And this is a method that our therapist taught to us to really protect yourself and seal yourself off from other people's force fields, right? It's called the zip-up method. So, like I said, we all have a force field around us, and to really protect yourself and lock yourself within yours and to not get affected by other people's force fields, you can use the zip-up method. Essentially, you take your hands and you lace your fingers like this. You put them down as low as you can, probably like top of the leg length, and then you zip all the way up to the top of your head, and then you're zipped up. And you can leave your room, go get what you need, be safe, come back, and once you get back in your space, you can zip yourself back down. And that's been really psychologically just refreshing and nice to have as a method of just putting this safe bubble around yourself. It's really lovely. Now, the next, and I think probably most important thing that I really want to tell you in this video. So now we're going to talk about accepting the things you cannot change, changing the things you can change, and knowing the difference between those two things. This is a quote that I think we've all heard, but it is super important in this situation. If you are in the environment you got sick, there are going to be people that potentially say or do things that are off-putting and that you don't like and you're uncomfortable with. Something we have tried to do our whole life, or at least Charlie did, or Elle back whenever it was Elle, was hang on to these moments of when this person did something good and think maybe one day we could change this person, maybe one day this person could change and things could be like we want them to be. But sometimes that's not always the case. The only person who can change themselves is that person. It can't be you, it has to be them. Say you have a narcissistic parent and the likelihood that you're going to change them is about 0%. Instead of hanging on to the good moments, or instead of really trying to explain to them why what they're doing is problematic, if they just keep responding with rage, if they keep responding with passive aggression, if they keep responding with not listening to you and making the situation worse, at some point you're going to have to accept that you're not going to change them anytime soon. But say you have another parent in the house with you who potentially can change and would potentially be open to that, they're just a little currently misguided, then with slight, kind redirections, if they say something that's off color, setting a boundary and being like, hey, would you mind not saying this? You can slowly start to make an understanding with each other and repair that a little bit. But you have to know that there are some people that no matter how much it sucks, you may not be able to change them. And you may not be able to change the situation. I think knowing the difference is the hardest part, and this won't happen overnight. But if you have made efforts to try and get through to them before and none of the times it ever works, you may start having to explore the possibility that right now and in the foreseeable future, there might not be anything you can do to change them. So what do you do whenever you can't change somebody? How do you handle this situation? Well, like I said about the force field you have, I would recommend making yours a lot stronger so that you can handle these things. A lot of us trauma survivors aren't very in tune with our body and with our brain and what we feel comfortable with and what our boundaries are. If you can figure out what your boundaries are and figure out what you're comfortable with, you can lightly and kindly set boundaries. However, if you know if you do this, the person will get enraged at you or cause you more abuse or harm, please don't do that. Please keep yourself safe. But if you know it will likely be safe if you just say, hey, do you mind not doing this in the future? Then please set boundaries because you deserve it. For example, when Charlie, or Elle at the time, was in the house that we got sick, we had a family member that would constantly refer to us as baby girl. Elle is not a girl. Elle at the time was non-binary. They just kind of put up with it. They didn't say anything, they didn't do anything, because when you've been in trauma, sometimes your mindset is you just have to put your head down and put up with it. And then at one point, Elle just decided to say, hey, do you mind not calling me that? just kindly, lightly, and that family member never did it again. And oh my God, things were so much more comfortable. Sometimes it isn't safe to do things like that, or maybe it hasn't been safe in the past, but sometimes it is safe and it does make things a whole lot better. If you have a family member that likes to get up behind you and touch your shoulders or rub your head or something like that, and that makes you uncomfortable, tell them to stop. Lightly and kindly, of course, Tell them to stop in a way where it will be most likely received well, like kindly. But anything like that that has always made you uncomfortable, it's okay to set boundaries. How you treat this family member that doesn't change is very important. Now with narcissists, there is this thing called the gray rock method, where you do essentially become a gray rock, where you become uninteresting, monotone, monosyllabic. You only say what you have to say. If they start getting on to you, you don't really retaliate. You're just like, yeah, okay, right? However, this is something you need to be very, very careful with and do more research on, because they can get more angry at you before they get less angry and start ignoring you. Now, what you can do is somewhat of a mix between this, where you can be animated and okay and like yourself. However, if they start saying something off-putting, you just kind of brush past it and are like, okay, and then you just move on. Say you're riding in the car with this family member and you're being yourself, you're being normal, you're being animated, and then say they pull out something rude, like, I don't see why you can't get straight A's like your friend. I don't see why you can't be that smart. Just something really mean. Instead of retaliating or going into yourself and internalizing it, you can just say, I don't know. How long till we get home? Just something like that, where you just kind of brush past it very casually instead of really making a big deal out of it. And your head might still make a big deal out of it internally, and that's something that takes time to work through and takes time to build your energy high enough so that it doesn't get so toddled with by other people. But in terms of how you outwardly handle it, just that method tends to work really well for me. The next thing that I want to give you is taking care of yourself. This is really hard, but it goes a long way. Keeping your space clean goes a long way. If you're triggered, the one thing that's going to really make it worse is if you go into your room and it is extremely messy and you just feel even more like crap. Take a shower every day or every other day. Brush your teeth once or twice a day. I know you're supposed to brush it twice, but honestly, a lot of us feel ashamed to admit the number of times we brush our teeth per day. So once could be a step up for you to work up to that, Giving your body the proper food and water. We have ADHD, and we also have this weird bodily thing where we don't feel a sense of thirst very often. So drinking water is just like a huge chore. So what we have to do is, towards the end of the day, we just sit down, pour a massive cup of water, chug the whole thing, wait for a while for our stomach to get less full, and then we go and chug another one, and basically drink all the water that somebody your age needs in a day in like a matter of a couple hours, because we just know we're not going to drink it throughout the day. You can do that same thing or something like that to really just make sure you're taking care of yourself. Now I want to talk about how to make your energy force field stronger and how to really actually get into the nitty-gritty of healing on your own. Obviously, get therapy. Whatever you do in therapy, do whatever you and your therapist decide, right? That's not that. But what you can do on your own is you can work on accepting every part of yourself. This doesn't only go for DID and accepting all of your alters, be they the persecutors, the trauma holders, the most uncomfortable parts. Even if you don't want to sit down and talk with them directly, you can just sit down at the end of the day and let yourself know, hey, whoever's listening to this, whoever can hear this, I accept you and I love you and thank you for fulfilling the role you filled for me, and you deserve respect and you deserve love and you deserve to be safe. But even if you don't have DID, we all do have little aspects of ourselves, and if you've ever read Carl Jung, we all have a little shadow self of things about ourselves that we don't like to admit to ourselves. Even if you don't go into the box and dig it all out right now, you can again sit down at the end of the day and say, I love every part of myself and I respect every part of myself, and every part of myself deserves to be respected and deserves to be protected. And as far as strengthening that force field of energy around you, Just say to yourself, you can say it right now, you can say it at any time, I am who I say I am. I love, accept, and respect myself. I deserve to protect myself. My feelings are my feelings. I am not overreacting. I deserve respect. You are who you say you are. You can love, accept, and respect yourself. Your feelings are your feelings. You are not overreacting, and you deserve respect. Just like a protector alter could protect you, maybe you can start treating yourself or playing that role and deciding that I want to protect myself. However, that is best suitable to me, because you deserve to be protected and you deserve respect and you deserve to heal. So I really hope that this video helped you. I really tried to help you out with explaining this and giving you certain methods. I really hope that you at least take one thing or something from this video, because I've never heard anyone sit and talk about this topic before. People just kind of accept that you can't heal in the same environment that you got sick, but really, I don't think that's true at all. So thank you for watching this. My name was Ginger. My name still is Ginger. Bye.